Welcome, everybody, back to ProTalks. Today, I'm joined by Farith Odar, and we're going to learn a little bit more about his story and his experience as a sales rep, and also what he's seen on the technology side. Farith, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I am the sales manager here at Leap. I've been with the company for 7 years now, so I'd like to say that it's pretty much since day one, probably like a month or so after opening doors here. Prior to Leap, I started actually funny enough in preparation for this. I was counting the years. I have some dates ready for you, and it's been 18 years since I actually started in the home improvement space. Now on the tech side, but prior to that, I was at a local company selling windows, roofing, doors, gutters, and all that. And I pretty much started from the probably lowest position that you can have, knocking on doors, putting flyers out, that type of thing. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
18 years.
18 years.
Nice.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. I know. I was thinking back too. I started like 20. See, it's funny. I used to say 18 years and 20 years. Now it's like 23 years. It's like, where the hell did time go?
Well, because I don't think of myself as being in the industry for that long. And then when you start throwing years out there, and like I was telling you, I was getting ready, and then I realized, I'm like, wait, hold on. I took the job when I was 18 years old. I'm 36 now.
Yeah.
So sure, like first you're just knocking on doors, so you can't really tell you're an expert or anything. Most of those jobs are like a summer job.
Yeah.
In the life expectancy of they call it marketers or canvassers. I don't know. It's like, a summer, literally.
Yeah.
And then after that, you move on to bigger and better things.
Do you remember how you got started?
Absolutely. I was going to community college, and there's this table at the cafeteria with literally a tablecloth and some flyers. And at the time, the marketing manager, very outspoken and loud and weird dude, he was approaching absolutely every single person who walked by.
Obviously, it had to be good energy because it attracted
Oh
you.
man,
Yeah.
this guy had 20 cups of coffee before getting there for sure. And at the time, I had just gotten a job. I was selling knives for Cutco, which a lot of they're everywhere. Every trade show we go to, they're there.
It's a great intro to sales.
It's beautiful. They have one of the best sales trainings that I've ever experienced. Yeah. And I was not thinking of myself as a salesperson at all. I was always persuasive, and like just one of the main guys in the group of friends. Mm-hmm. Like I'll have a say on where we go and things like that, right? But
you convince the guys.
But never thought of it as. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. Never thought of it as I'm just gonna take that as a career path. So, anyways, the guy literally had no pitch. All he said was, "How much do you make?" Like randomly. Mm-hmm. At the time, man, it was probably like $8 an hour. Right. Like if you were making $10 an hour anywhere,
right.
Next level, right?
The world is your oyster.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And this guy goes, "What if I can tell you that you can make 20?" I'm like, "Sign me up."
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to do?
When do I start?
Yeah. And so then I go to this interview, and then I walk in this room. It was a basement actually, and two of my friends from high school were there. They were already working there. They just didn't tell anybody because it was like the secret spot.
How funny.
So my one friend goes, he's like, "Man, you're going to go out with me. Like today, you're going to go with me. We knock on doors. All we got to tell people is that they got to take an estimate for an hour. It's free. They don't have to buy anything. And you get paid $250.
You're essentially selling the estimate.
Selling the estimate. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're telling whatever you want to tell them for the customer or the homeowner to just sit there, right? I'm like, that's too easy, man. So, hey, we did that. And we'll only go for like 3 hours a night. We'll like get together at 4. There was like a sales meeting. Then everybody goes out in their private vehicles. They have these crew leaders. Mm-hmm. So you'll go out there, street clothes, nothing formal, just some flyers, a clipboard, go to the area. They give you like a 5-sentence pitch, very sink or swim. And it took me probably about a month to really get comfortable with it. At the time, funny enough, I was only about 5 years in the country. Probably not like four years. I'm from Peru originally. So I was still, my English was not great. But I did have I was just seeing people making money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to get there. And the people that were making the money, I'm not talking about people that were like adults with a career. Like it was just kids just like me knocking on doors with flip-flops.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's no way I can give up. So anyways, long story short, that's how I got started.
So how long did you do that for?
So I am the anomaly when it comes to that because I actually did it for 5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
Yeah. Knocking on doors.
Knocking on that and I was always the one thing that I did. I didn't just take the job for at first. I did. I just go in 4 hours a day, go home, nothing else. I had another job in the morning, so it was like one of those things. And then it clicked at a certain point where I wanted to just be in the office more and just do whatever. So I'll go there, and if I needed to print out some flyers or get the we used to have this like lead slips, help my manager cut them, right? Anything that I can do just to like eavesdrop conversations where like the salespeople were coming in talking about their days and things like that, like the lingo, getting familiar with like the owner or CEO Patrick Fingles. He was the owner of the company, and just getting my name there, like, you know. So I was like a do it all type of thing. So then I got involved in trade shows, where I would be the one driving the van and setting up the show. Okay. So that gave me a sense of ownership, and I did feel like I owned that function for the company. Yeah. I was the first person that went to it was a wine festival, and we had a little table with like a miniature window and had my flyers. Yep. And so I like pioneering things like that. So I was doing that. Next thing you know, it's 5 years. And I was always at that point where like, do we make him a salesperson? But he just looks too young. Until I finally just got to a place where
like you're 25.
Right. So I'm like, that was always my problem, right? Yeah. So we had to dress it up a little bit, shirt, tie, and all that, and that sort of helped.
So did you then transition into sales?
I transitioned into sales from that point. You got to a point where I just wanted to make more, and I just couldn't. I mean, you can make only so. Yeah, you can make so much knocking on doors and doing some trade shows. So then I became a salesperson. I did that for 2 years, I believe. And that was great. I mean, that took me to the next level. I think starting out as in the marketing role and actually being there for so many years doing that and learning the value of the lead and what really went through the process of generating that from all different sources, right? From trade shows, festivals, canvassing, the management of canvassers, the cost of taking the guys out there, all the stories, the interaction with people, like taking somebody from a solid no to a sure, I'll take an estimate, all of that. And then being the salesperson that received that thing, like I would treat every lead like it was a baby.
Yeah, right.
Because I knew what it came through, right? Where reps that were that didn't know that and that just started as a salesperson, which many people have. Yeah, I would say the majority, right? They didn't. They just received the appointment as what it was, an appointment, and they'll go there, they'll do what they will call their best and move on.
But you really value that lead.
I will go the extra level. Yeah. And then when I will go, don't get me wrong, I definitely had some instances where I knew I also knew the other side of it, right? Like, there were marketers or canvassers that would just set fake appointments and things like that. I had an eye for that because I knew what it went through. But no, there were plenty of instances where you pull up to somebody's house and you're judging the book by its cover. Sure. You're not seeing the right vehicles parked. You're you're seeing the roof too old. And you see that it's too old. There's a reason why that hasn't been replaced yet, right? Yeah. The area, you're like, oh, it's not good credit. Yeah. And you pull up and you're like, oh, another canvasser that probably, said whatever they needed to say to get somebody to just commit for an hour, but they have no interest. Next thing you know, 2 hours later, you're walking out with like $20,000 deal. Yeah. So it definitely helped.
How do you approach that mindset? Because I think a lot of people are in that where they kind of pre-screen what they're walking into, and then you end up walking out with a really good deal. Like, how do you keep the mindset of I'm not going to just assume something because of the way that the cars that are parked there or the way the home looks? Or
it's funny. It only takes one time for it to work your way, for you to change your mindset.
Yeah.
Like, and you always go back to that because like that's the one thing you want to brag about. Like you'll have people coming back to the office on a Friday morning or Thursday or whatever, whenever your meeting is, and if you just sold something like that where everybody else would have walked out,
Yeah.
you're pumping your chest.
Yeah. Your chest a little.
Oh my God. You're
sticking out a
like,
lot. Yeah.
you're walking in, you're a company man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Do you ever go back to the canvasser and be like, yeah, you
absolutely.
thought you got me on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You go back to the canvasser, you
Yeah.
create that relationship with them.
Yeah.
Now they like you.
Yeah.
So now they're actually trying harder for you.
Mm-hmm.
You go out to the neighborhood,
Yeah.
bring in some coffee or something, and
Yeah.
they're like, okay, great. I want to set them up with a good one. It pays off.
Yeah.
But then again, there's always, and look, those reps that don't get over that hump probably are not sitting here telling you about it either. So
Yeah. What so you were there 7 years total?
yes, so 7 years there. I did have a 2-year gap where I did some marketing sales also for a local radio station.
Oh, okay.
I took that opportunity because I really wanted to diversify my sales experience.
Sure.
I felt a little bit limited in. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But it did feel at a certain point where like, what happens if I remove myself from this?
Yeah.
Right. And can I go and sell something else? So I did have the opportunity to use my knowledge in the home improvement industry to then help them with their marketing.
Yeah.
The company that I worked for, New Look, they had a pretty good presence in the Baltimore area, Maryland, like all, counties near Baltimore. And where they were like the top, like on the radio station, you'll hear them everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew how much money we're spending and how good those leads were. So I did that for 2 years. I kind of wanted to stick with that. And then the Leap opportunity came up.
Yeah.
That one came out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
here we are.
So walk me through this a little bit. Like, what did the process look like at New Look when, you've seen from a lead through the sale, like were you hands off after the sale?
Yes. So New Look so maybe not now, but back then New Look was a 100% one call close company. Mm-hmm. So what that means for those that are not aware of that term, there's a difference between you wanting to get the business in one visit, and if it happens, awesome. Mm-hmm. And there's another scenario where like the company embraces just that philosophy throughout. Yeah. Where like if you walk out of that house, you are not talking to that customer again.
Right.
Doesn't matter if they call you. So you have the 2-3 hours, whatever time. I've been in houses for over 5, doing whatever it takes to earn the business. And they were like, that's it. So that is my background. That's what I know of sales. Obviously, I've diversified that now by not only selling business to business now, and also with the marketing gig that I did. Also now just talking to companies every single
right.
day, and knowing that there's many ways to skin the cat, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's how I learned it.
Did you know at the time when you were at New Look that there is another way?
No.
To that this is the way.
This is the only way to
everybody.
Do it.
Yeah.
Why would you?
What was it like?
Way.
what was it like when you found out? And maybe it was when you were at Leap. Like when you found out that that company does it a different way. Was it like mind blowing or?
It was, and it did happen at Leap. It affected me more when I started at Leap. But I did find that there were other ways to do it when I was doing when I was working for the radio station. Because when I was working for the radio station, my sweet spot was home improvement companies, because I could name drop.
Sure.
And I knew internally how the business operates. I knew their pain points. I knew what they wanted. I knew the cost of a lead. I knew all of those things. So when I will go to a business owner, in fact, some of them, I got them to buy radio and also got them to buy Leap eventually. When I will go to them, no other marketing rep for a radio station is going to have those conversations with them. Is going to talk about closing rates in the home improvement industry, or the cost per lead, or how's your trade show going. Like none of that. So as soon as you start dropping those terms, they open up to you. So when they did open up and they will tell me about what they wanted, it just didn't align with what New Look was doing. And for me, I'm like, what do you mean you only want 10 phone calls? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, yeah, if I get 10 phone calls from this radio ad that runs for a month, I'll be happy. I'm like, what? Like, how do you even feed your sales team like that, right? And most of them don't even have a sales team. So that was shocking, but they will still purchase. When I started at Leap and I was doing my discovery, and again, keep in mind that when we started, we didn't have a sales process. We would just demo the product. Right. I mean, we built the sales process based on what worked and what didn't, I guess. Sure. But we didn't have like a script or anything like that. We created them. So at first, the majority of the companies that we will go after were from referrals, from partners, CRMs that we integrated with, or people that knew that were local and they knew that we came from New Look. So they like that. People that used to work at New Look that will go work for somebody else, and they'll find out that they're doing everything on paper, and they get their boss to give us a call. So those were quote unquote easier ones because they all wanted to know what New Look was doing. So for them, if they weren't doing it, they wanted to, so they'll buy it. And if they were doing it, they understood that it was a proven process and already a vetted product. So they'll buy it. Yeah. And then you'll find those who are not, who are your local roofers, your two-step close type of guys, your guys that want to leave a proposal behind, insurance that has no like really sales process per se. And that was shocking. Because then the mistake that I made very early on was that I wanted, instead of just listening to their processes and see what worked for them and find a way for my product to solve for that, which is how you're supposed to be selling this, the way that it only works, I was trying to change their processes so that it fit what I knew. Yeah, sure. And yeah, sure, some would, and others they just didn't see it. It's like, no, we're not. It's not in our DNA to pressure somebody to buy something in the first visit. So
I'd love to hear, like, since you have experience at New Look pre their use of Leap or Sales Pro, like, what does that look like today, like with Sales Pro? Because obviously you're probably still close to some of those folks. I know some of them have since like joined our sales team, so they've got experience with that as well. Like, how do you think that the impact of technology or what impact did it have on the sales process?
I love to talk about that because it's one of those things where people feel like technology is going to help them close more deals or it's going to make their reps be better reps. And the reality of it is that it's not, right? Could it help you close a couple of deals because of you using technology and the customer liking you more because of it? Sure. Maybe if you have 3 people, you're using an iPad and the other 2 are using pen and paper, just they go with you.
Sure.
Right?
Perception.
That could definitely happen.
Sure.
However, it's not going to take your 25% close rate rep to be a 40% close rate, right? And also, it's not going to happen the other way. Your 40% close rate is not going to suddenly disappear because you introduce technology. Sales is a I like to see it as a sport. Like, people like to think sales is a numbers game. It's not. It's a skill set, right? And you have to train and you have to learn it and you have to follow the processes and it works. So that's completely separate. The way that we built Sales Pro wasn't to close more deals, and it wasn't to necessarily turn the unsuccessful reps to successful reps. It came out of need, personal need, not necessarily a company need either. It was just the desire to do things in less steps because we wanted to utilize our time in a better way.
Yeah, I mean, Steve tells the story when he created it. He's like, he self-professes that he was a lazy sales rep, right? And he wanted a more efficient way to do things.
Correct. So, like, if I need to learn long division to calculate something, I would rather use a calculator, right? So it's the same mentality, right? It feels like you're busier in the house if you're like taking the measurements and handwriting something. Sure, you may feel like that, but from a customer perspective, you're sitting there staring at what's happening. And all your question is the accuracy of that.
Sure.
And you could be the best one at it, right? And that takes you 25, 30 minutes. You could have taken that time to find more pain points, to relate with the customer, to find a solution to their actual problem, while the calculation was done in a second, right? So the impact is, one, it really elevates you as a salesperson, because now you're not so worried about the mechanics of it.
Right.
Now you got to be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be good at selling. You got to follow your process. You got to ask your questions. You got to understand the customer. You got to listen, eye contact. That's a whole different level of sales rep, right? Yeah. So it challenges the rep. It challenges the company, because now the company has to have better training and produce better content so that the rep can use their social skills to be able to close this, right? So from that sense, right? Like, I mean, it was definitely night and day. It almost felt a little bit awkward at first, because you're so used to taking the 25 minutes to like prepare your price presentation sheet, and you gotta have all different, like, fold the paper, all these little gimmicks that all those companies have. That makes you feel ready and prepared. Well, next thing you know, you're only doing it with one button. Yeah. And now you're sitting there like, oh, it's ready. It's time to go, right? Yeah. So that's a little shocking, but all in all, the impact really for companies, you're gonna feel it more in their the utilization of their resources. So big one for Sales Pro is training. If you're like, we used to take about a month to train a rep, classroom for 2 weeks, where you're not seeing absolutely anything, but just like learning how to fill out a contract, how to work through your price book, how to, in what order you're supposed to do your pitch book, you're supposed to do this, that, and the other one. All those processes, right? And a lot of it's just mechanics. They have samples of contracts or what to do, what you can do, and all that in 2 weeks. Then you go out and you have a ride along to see how it's done. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, probably about in a month period, you're actually getting your first lead when you're doing it, right? So what you're gonna find is that if you have that type of business and you're trying to scale, you will scale with paper. I mean, there's multiple companies that do it successfully, but it just takes you longer. So how you're using your resources to make sure that you're doing it the best and most efficient way possible. Sales Pro comes in, eliminates all of the things that your reps don't want to do. All you're teaching them now is how to actually sell.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of like when I was back in school, I used to wrestle. And like in middle school and maybe early high school, I used to get by like just over muscle people, right? Mm-hmm. But like my technique was horrible.
There you go.
And then I transferred and I went to a high school that was just a monster in wrestling, and I just got destroyed.
Right.
And it was like, oh yeah, because my technique wasn't strong and I was relying on all these other things. And like when I got into roofing sales, I had started from the laborer side, not the sales side. Mm-hmm. So like I would rely heavily on like my industry knowledge of roofing, putting together great hand measurements and like talking through some of that stuff. But with technology, like you didn't have to do that.
You didn't do that.
So it makes you, requires you to be really good at sales, technically good at sales. And you don't have to have that background in roofing. You don't have to have swung a hammer, installed the shingle in order to sell.
I mean, people always say like, like there's this fear of technology's eventually you're going to buy a roof online. I agree and disagree on that. Yeah, you can get a price online, sure. But that human element, like just somebody that walks you through that, it's kind of like a realtor, right? Mm-hmm. Like the realtor is really not doing anything besides taking you to homes and talk. Like it's more the knowledge in the industry, experience and advising you properly.
Well, they're telling you what neighborhood maybe to buy in.
Right, but they're not necessarily pushing buttons. Sure, they're not building the house.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yep. So similar to that.
Yeah. No, awesome. I want to transition a little bit. So your time at Leap, like when you started talking to prospects and other folks in the industry that were interested in Sales Pro, did any of them have like an aha moment when you were talking to them where they, you're going through a demo and they're like, oh man, if I had this 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, like it would have saved me this or that, or we could have done this. Do you have any good stories of folks?
It happens all the time. And it happens more with the guy in the trenches, like the rep, like the salesperson. Sure. Sometimes when you talk to business owners, and God bless them, they're the ones making the decision anyways. I don't want to dismiss their viewpoint here, but they're so far removed. Mm-hmm. They probably did sell roofing windows and doors at some point many moons ago, but they're so far removed from that. Like you talk to a CFO, to a COO, they're so far removed from what happens actually in the home,
like at the kitchen table,
right? That they lose sight of those moments, mm-hmm. right? So you see it more when you're demoing either a sales manager who's heavily involved in the day-to-day operations. And when you talk to an actual rep, a good rep is going to sell it regardless of what they're actually using. I mean, that's just the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
But like those moments happen when you talk about the simple things. For instance, like somebody using like an Eagle View report or something like that, right? And there was a time or an instance where they were putting a job together where they had their measure sheet and then they had the Eagle View. Well, the company doesn't trust Eagle View yet. Mm-hmm. So you're using just Eagle View to like review your measurements. You still have to go measure it though, right? So then the rep goes out there, remeasures that, has the Eagle View report, tries to cross-reference that, second guesses the measurements because of that. The pricing is not built with any kind of fluff or any buffer in there to, accommodate those mistakes. Next thing you know, the rep put a formula in there, messed up the math, closed the deal, thought they were making, $2,500 bucks, $5,000. Next thing you know is barely out of guidelines. You're making the minimum commission, sometimes none of it. And that's when the rep goes like, man, if I would have had this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, not only would have been a lot easier, right? It would have been more accurate, and I actually would have made money on it.
Yeah.
Things like that happen. A manager will also acknowledge those things because they are the ones having the conversation with the rep months later after install, telling this person, oh, by the way, you thought you were getting that, well, we need to claw back some of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you ever had that happen to you?
Yes. I had that happen to me with a roof, but it happened the opposite way. Okay. It was actually my very first roof.
Okay. That I sold.
Yeah. Now this is I don't know if companies still do it the way that we used to do it. We used to have no Eagle View, nothing. It was purely hand measured. It was a townhouse actually. It was my first roof. Keep in mind, I don't have any experience. Prior to this, I was a canvasser, like I was telling you. Like I know what a house looks like. That's about the extent of my knowledge in the month of training, which would be just product knowledge and then some like sketches. Yeah. Of roofing that I would just measure, and I knew the formula. I'm pretty good in math. So what I did actually, instead of measuring the home the way that it was built, I flipped the paper by mistake. So I put the measurements in the wrong order. Okay. So the short side I put it in the long side, and the long side I put it in the short side. And then because it was the short side, it was the side with the pitch. Yeah. So then I took the larger measurement times the pitch, which actually brought it even higher. Yeah. And then I did the entire math, and then it ended up being like, I don't know, $4,000 higher than what it should have been. Yeah. Because I didn't know anything, and I was just following the process. I put the price out on the table, straight face. Sure. Believe in the math that I just learned. Yeah. 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Yeah. And I go at it, and I'm doing my price presentation. I drop price, and it was a combination of a lot of things. The customer happened to not have the cash, but they wanted to do credit. Sure. It was not a great area, but I was like, no problem. It was a paper credit app at the time, so you didn't have instant approval. Yeah. So she filled it out. I sold the deal. It was my first lead ever, actually. I'm excited. I'm happy. Go back to the office. My manager redoes. He goes and like, let me check your measurements. Sure. Finds out what I did wrong. Realized that I overcharged. Yeah. The customer did not have very good credit, but we could approve them at a higher rate. So we'll have to eat some of it. But I had so much built in the deal because I messed up the measurements positively. Yeah. That I was fine. I made like $3,000 on it. Yeah. So it did happen to me in a good way. Yeah. But it also happens the other way around.
You never had your commission clawed back?
I think I had it one time or two, but it wasn't big. Yeah. Most of the deals that happened, like that happened to me, they were already like small enough, and we sold them for like very little margin. But I've seen stories. It typically comes up to when people leave. You hear a lot of stories of like salespeople leaving business companies and they don't get paid. Sure. Right. Sure. Because typically they close out their books, they install all the roofs, and then they do the math based on what the company actually paid to install everything. Yeah. And then, they claim that, hey, you undersold a couple of deals, so you thought you're owed this much, but you actually are not owed anything. Yeah. Right. Those type of thing happens. But again, those are conversations that you just don't want to have. Yeah. If you didn't have the variable, then you're never going to have that issue. You're not going to have that bad review on Glassdoor. You may not even lose employees. Some people just leave the company because they feel like they didn't get paid.
Yeah. What they were owed or
what they were supposed to be owed,
sure.
right? So standardizing that, Sales Pro, and again, Sales Pro wasn't built for that though.
Right.
It just so happened to do those things for us.
Yeah.
It was really like a aha moment for us when it was built. And then we have conversations with other companies and we're like, wow.
Yeah.
We were just doing this because we wanted to get to our price faster.
Yeah. What was your experience though when Steve's building this in New Look? Were you there for that?
Yeah.
And then, so you got to use it as one of like the first people to use it.
Yes.
What was the reaction from like other sales reps? Were you guys like, yes, this is awesome, or was there some resistance to it?
So Steve is at the time he was very private.
Yeah.
With his own
Sure.
Everything. Like Steve was here, everybody was here.
Yeah.
And he'll have just a handful of people that he was friendly with.
Yeah.
I was, I guess, honored to be one of them.
Yeah.
And I think I was just one of them because he knew me for a year because I was a canvasser. So I used
Sure.
to feed him leads.
Yeah, sure.
So it was a nice story. Oh, look, Farith's growing up.
Yeah.
Great. So like he will just
He's
like,
offering you a hand.
yeah, he will just be there, right?
Yeah.
But he wouldn't tell you things. It was hard to get him to tell you how he closed deals. He
Sure.
was very reserved.
Yeah.
So when he started doing that, I don't know if you guys know the story. He used to have a laptop, Excel spreadsheet, and then he bought an iPad, and then the iPad didn't support his spreadsheet, so then he built the app, right?
Right.
So when he was doing that, he just needed people. He was forced to share it with people because he needed to have people to test it.
Yeah.
So then it was like 5 of us. So he was like, hey, let me download this on your phone. iPhones were just becoming a big deal.
Yeah.
So I happen to have an iPhone. Luckily, if I didn't have one, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah.
And the first version of Leap at the time wasn't even called Leap, obviously, was just a price guide.
Right.
It was just for pricing. It was just the roof section with the items, and you put in your measurements. It didn't even have Eagle View or nothing. And then the big part was the integrated with our CRM.
Right.
At the time. That was the big thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I hated going back to my office or my house and have to report back to my manager.
Yeah. Why? Like what was it about that made that so?
I was young, man. I was 22, 23 years old. I didn't want to go home and do homework.
Yeah.
I just wanted to meet up with my buddies and go to wing night.
Yeah.
Right. And then next thing you know, it's like 8 a.m. You're waking up for your sales meeting, and the admin person is texting you, is like, I don't have your results. I'm like, oh, now I have to scan them. Now I got to send them. I got to email you. And by the time you're doing that, you don't recall the details of the appointment. So I'm giving you the bare minimum that I can possibly remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of a nightmare because I wasn't the only one that wasn't doing. So, the back office was kind of a nightmare with reporting properly. So like that, we knew that meeting, the numbers that were posted on that board for that morning meeting were not accurate because my results weren't in.
Yeah, sure. Right. So how did that change once you started?
It was immediate. So like on the app, and those that are using this, that you can go in and it captures everything you've put in. So by the time you get to your results, they're pretty much already done for you. All you got to do is put in probably your final number or whatever other custom fields that as a company you may require. You're like, who do you speak with? Mr. or Mrs. Okay, great, done. The copy of your estimate is sent back to the office. Your contract, if it's signed, is back at the office. Pictures are back at the office. It was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like,
what was your first reaction when
I was literally like, I was like, Steve, are you kidding? I mean, I used other words, but
yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, are you serious right now? He's like, isn't that cool? I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it was unreal. Keep in mind too, it was a combination of things. Like if you were to create Sales Pro today, it wouldn't have had the same impact because there's other technology out there. Apps are like second nature.
Right.
Like even to order pizza, you have to download an app. You know what an app is. Back then, people didn't know what an app was.
Right.
Some people have flip phones.
Right.
So not only you created an app, which I don't know what that is.
I feel like I'm being seen right now.
Right. like I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it simplifies what we do every single day. How? Why?
Were you doing this on an iPhone?
On an iPhone.
Like a 3-inch screen iPhone?
It was an iPhone 3 at the time. So it was small.
Yeah, a little small screen.
Yeah,
that had to be funny.
Yeah.
Well, out there, Steve's probably got like a big, huge,
He had an iPad.
like the biggest iPad.
He had an iPad. He was the first generation iPad that couldn't
Yeah.
even support Microsoft.
Yeah.
That's why he converted his Excel spreadsheet, which was also known. He wouldn't share that. So see, like he was using that laptop. He had a Mac. He was using that spreadsheet for years.
Yeah.
We knew that he was the only person in the sales meeting that will sit down with a laptop.
Yeah.
Not even the manager.
Yeah.
We all just had papers, right? And he'll sit there, and we knew what he had. He had his price guide, and he had all that 3 different prices and all his formulas. He will not share that with anybody.
Yeah.
He wouldn't. And then he needed to convert it. And when he converted it, he converted to numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys know, but numbers when it first came out, it was terrible.
Right.
I don't know if it's better now, but and Mac didn't support Microsoft. So he said he was forced to build an app. Think about that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Anybody else would have just, I'm just going to use Excel.
How long did you get to use it when you were at New Look?
About a year.
About a year.
Yeah. And it wasn't what it is now. It was just the price guide.
Right.
And the results.
Yeah.
There was no financing integration. There was no pitch book, no resources, no contract.
Yeah.
In fact, the contract came out a year after Leap hit the market.
Yeah. And I thought a lot of people don't know this, but like it originally was called Estimate.
He needed to pick a name.
Yeah.
So the Apple Store will approve it.
Yeah.
And it was called Estimate.
Yeah. That didn't last very long.
No.
For obviously it was changed to Leap. This is awesome. Any other like anecdotes or stories that you recall from? I mean, you've been at Leap now for over 7 years. So you've heard from a lot of companies that have adopted this. I think one of the funnest things for me is to see somebody who came in, left, and then came back.
I mean, that happens all the time, and we kind of joke around too. Look, there's people don't necessarily quit technology, right? I mean, look around. We go to trade shows. There's so much out there. It wasn't like that when this thing was built, and it even wasn't like that when it hit the market. So it was a very good timing, right? But for now, it's always like there's got to be something else out there, and chances are you're gonna find something there. And everybody wants to build an app now,
Sure.
right? So the point I'm trying to make is companies don't necessarily quit technology because if anything, they're actually buying more of it. They quit the commitment to technology, right?
Yeah.
People quit halfway because they're just not as committed to it. That's pretty much what it is. So when you see companies that when they purchased it, they were so excited about it, and then for whatever reason they have to put a stop to it, and then you don't see them until 2 years later. My question to them is always like, okay, well, how committed are you this time around, right? Yeah. While it's funny to see that because then hey, they came back. I honestly wish it wasn't that way, right?
Sure.
And just stick to it the first time. You're gonna get the most value the earlier you get on, right? Even if it's 7 years past. I mean, Leap is gonna be here for a while,
right?
Even if you get on it now, or any technology for that matter that has the expectation to be bigger and better, like what you're buying today at a premium, in years down the road, you get a big discount on that. Not only because you got the return, also you're gonna get a much better platform. So.
Yeah. Awesome. This is really, really great. We're gonna move into a rapid fire segment, which is always fun. So the first question is football or football?
Football.
I had to throw that one in there. The city or the country?
City.
Yeah. Pepsi or Coke?
Neither.
What's your drink?
Water.
Water.
Yeah.
Sparkling water, or just regular water?
Just
Tap
regular
water.
Yeah.
No kidding. All right. Cat or dog?
Oh, that's tough. Dog, but cats are right there, man.
Oh, you're a cat person.
I became one.
Okay.
Everybody that says they're not a cat person because they had a bad cat or not a cat at all. But if you ever have a cat and it's a good cat, man.
All right. I'll take note. Beach or lake?
I would probably say beach.
Beach.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it's like saltwater or freshwater.
Not much of a water guy, but I think
right.
beach, there's more stuff to do than a lake.
Yeah.
Nah.
Are you a road trip guy or a fly?
Fly. Get me there. Get me there.
What's your cutoff distance?
Driving 3
Yeah,
hours.
3 hours. All right.
And I'm struggling.
Yeah. All right. Text or call?
Text.
Yeah.
I can't stand calls.
Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Nice. All right. If you're not using tech, you're
Like on my day to day,
no, just in general. If somebody's not using tech, they're
they're missing out, man.
missing out.
Yeah.
I like it. What's the first trait you think of when you think of a good salesperson?
You gotta be nimble. You gotta be nimble. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The best way to scale your business.
Repeat what somebody else has done successfully. Don't outsmart yourself.
Yeah. Having a good process is
Elementary. Like you got it.
Elementary.
Yeah. It's
foundational.
foundational.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
better word.
All right. You scrambled or fried eggs?
Fried.
All right. Sometimes people don't even like eggs.
Oh no, I love eggs.
Ketchup on your eggs or no?
No,
All right, good.
not a ketchup guy.
Cool. That's all I have. Thank you all for joining us today. Farith, thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate it. It's great to see the evolution of the industry in it. It's evolved so much over the last 16 years, and really cool for you to be a part of it. Thanks
Appreciate
for joining
it.
us.
Thank you. Thanks.